The last type of formatted text file we want to look at is called a CSV file, or a comma delimited file. CSV stands for comma separated values. CSV file, if we take a look at one, we can open it in Notepad++. As you can see, it's just text separated by commas. Now the cool thing about this is that it ends up making columns of data. So you can see the fifth value is always going to be the first part of the zip. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the fifth value is always going to be the state. So it looks a lot like a database table, a relational database table. And in fact, CSV files are used to move data between databases if you can't do a direct connection. Databases like to read CSV files and like to write CSV files. So one of the most common ways to get data into a program is either from a CSV file or a direct connection to a database. So reading CSV files is really important. If we look at our Python code and we look at CSV file 0, it even has its own library. We read in the CSV library. We set the file name to the location of the file. We open the file and we create a object, which is the CSV reader. And then we can use the next command to access the rows of data in the CSV file. So next will give us the next row. And the first row in many CSV files is called the header row. Instead of containing data, it gives the column names for all the columns in the file. It's not required to be a CSV file, but it's often done. Sometimes that information is stored in a separate file, but in this case, the header row has the information in it. And if we read that, it gives us what column, and it then asks us what column we want to print. And let's print the first name, and sure enough, there is the first names from the CSV file. If we look at CSV file 1, now we're looking at green.csv. Green.csv is a huge CSV file that contains monthly reports from the taxi service, one of the taxi service in one section of Manhattan. And we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to open it and read the first header file. I wanted to demonstrate that it is a list. It reads in as a list. So that first row of data gets converted to a list wherever comma break is. So once we have it in a list, we can do some cool things. If you look at CSV file 2, you can see one of the cool things we can do is we can print out the lists of values, and we can also print them out using the for column. We use the next to read the header row, and then the next to get the next row, which is now the data row. And we could keep reading through this, going next, 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 next. And if we look at the green, we can also, similar to what we did with the names, we can take the header row and print it out using the enumerate function to get numbers next to it. That way we can ask users to pick one of the options here to get one of the columns to do something with. And if we look at CSV file 4, that's exactly what we do. Same sort of thing we did with people. We ask which one we want to see. Let's pick, I don't know, number of passengers. And sure enough, it goes on and on and on and on and reads and displays the number of passengers for that data. And that's the first part of CSV files.